Hello and welcome to WION live broadcast from London. I'm Oliver Regan and these are the headlines. Iran carries out a second execution linked to anti-government protests in less than a week. Judiciary's news agency reports the man was hanged in public for stabbing to death two members of security forces. Indonesian government says foreign tourists and businesses won't be affected by the country's newly ratified criminal code, which criminalises sex outside marriage. New president of Peru says she will ask the Congress to advance elections to April 2024. This after two people died in violent protests that were triggered by former President Pedro Castillo's ouster. Britain's economy grew 0.5% in October after a sharp fall in September due to the closure of businesses for Queen Elizabeth's funeral. And Cristiano Ronaldo says his World Cup dream is over after Portugal's exit from the showpiece event in the quarter-finals, but he remains coy about his international future. UK braces for a series of strikes this month. This week, UK nurses are set to go on strike, and this will affect the already stretched UK hospitals. The walkout by UK nurses comes as railway and postal service strikes are already crippling the economy around the Christmas period. Airports across the UK are also bracing for disruption, and junior doctors and teachers are preparing to ballot for a strike call. This poses a threat across the UK economy, which is likely already in recession. After the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's war in Ukraine, the UK is also being crippled by a cost of living crisis, pushing up prices for housing, food and energy. The Royal College of Nurses Industrial Action is part of a growing wave among public and private sector employees. According to healthcare unions, their members are skipping meals, struggling to feed themselves and clothe their families. UK unions are seeking a double-digit pay increase and they want to keep pace with inflation that hit 11.1% in October. This is the highest inflation rate in 41 years. But so far, the UK government has refused to budge on pay. It instead looks to tighten laws to stop some of the strikes. Strikes are due on each day this month. Union estimates that more than 1 million working days will be lost in December, and this will make industrial action the worst month for disruption since July 1989. Well, let's rejoin our correspondent Alex Issat from London. Alex, again, the striking continues. Almost every day in December is blighted by strikes, but there is something particularly worrying about when nurses go on strike, because obviously a lot of people are concerned about the hospitals and healthcare. Tell us the latest.
Absolutely, you're right there. That is a real major concern, and I think that's why the UK public have been backing the nurses' strikes out of all of the others, because they see how hard work they've been doing throughout COVID. But we do understand that there is going to be an emergency COBRA meeting later today to discuss the situation that we're in, because when the nurses strike on Thursday and next Tuesday, and then the ambulance workers and a whole host of other strikes come forward, as well, we've got this horrendous weather that's going on at the moment. The Army have been called out to try and cover what they can across the country, but there are only so many people that can cover the nurses' strikes and all of the other strikes that are going on, as well as making sure that the motorways are clear, making sure that the border control and civil servants are also covered as well. At the moment, it does seem like a real stalemate between the government and all of the unions. Even Labour have said that the Royal College of Nursing are asking for too much at the moment. One thing that the Tory Tories and the Labour have agreed on. What we're seeing is that the government is saying we have no money, there's no money, we can't give these pay rises that the nurses and other unions are asking for. At the moment, inflation is so high. What they're looking to do is try and lower inflation as quickly as possible, which they believe will be done in the first quarter of next year. And when that inflation comes lower, then they will look again at a different pay rise option. They have put on the table a slight pay rise now to see them until that first quarter. And then they have said, Jeremy Hunt said today, that if they do come down inflation in the first quarter, then back pay will be given if they are looking to up the pay rate for nurses. So this conversation is still going on. It's unlikely that it's going to stop the strikes that are happening on Thursday with the nurses, but it may stop the strikes, or at least postpone the strikes from happening on Tuesday. But as you rightly said, basically every day in December there are some strikes across a union or another, which is really suffering for businesses and the UK people, especially when it is so cold outside. Everybody is looking to try and get that pay rise themselves. So the cost of living, with inflation so high, it is so expensive, and people are really looking to see whether they should heat their homes or eat. It's a real dire situation right now.
Alex Isat, live from London. Thank you very much for your insight there. Workers across the UK preparing for a strike over pay amidst an analysis report saying that 2022 has been the worst year for real wage growth in nearly half a century. According to official statistics by the Trades Union Congress, the amount people earned in relation to their cost of living fell by an average of $92 a month in 2022. This is because their pay is not able to keep pace with inflation. This means UK workers have seen the sharpest fall in real wages since 1977 and the second worst on record since the end of the Second World War. This also gives a clear picture of why so many workers have either started or are about to strike for increased pay. Amid soaring costs, workers have faced food inflation running at over 12% and annual energy bills more than $1,200. Earlier, UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly turned down an offer by nursing unions to suspend planned strikes in return for negotiations on pay. The Ukraine war rages on relentlessly. Ukraine's Defence Minister Oleksiy Reznikov says Ukrainian forces will resume active counter-offensive once the ground freezes become more solid or firm to pass equipment. According to the Ukrainian Defence Minister, Russians are fighting in civilian areas and attacking them in order to persuade the Ukrainian government to start negotiating on Russia's terms. But he assured that Russia will not succeed in it. Meanwhile, Ukraine attacked occupied Melitopol in the country's southeast. According to the Russian-installed authorities, a missile attack killed 2 people and injured 10. According to local authorities, the actual number of victims could be much higher since the start of the war. In Kherson, an international team of legal advisors has been working with local prosecutors. The legal team have begun gathering evidence of alleged sexual crimes by Russian forces as part of a full-scale investigation. Meanwhile, President Zelensky held talks with US President Biden and with the leaders of Turkey and France. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan discussed the Black Sea grain export agreement with the leaders of Russia and Ukraine. Both sides seek changes that would boost their exports. In Syria, after more than a decade of civil war, the narcotics business has taken place to thrive, and the country already struggling with post-war trauma and economical problems, Syria has turned into a narco state, all thanks to a drug called captagon. The pill is now by far Syria's biggest export, dwarfing its legal exports put together. The stimulant is being remembered for its association with Islamic State fighters. Now the drug business has spawned an illegal $10 billion industry. Captagon drug has turned Syria into the world's largest narco state. An amphetamine derived from a once legal treatment for narcolepsy and attention disorder. This has become a huge drug in the Gulf, and Saudi Arabia is by far the biggest market for this stimulant. In Saudi Arabia, Captagon is often talked of as a party drug, as it's cheap, discreet and less taboo than alcohol. Many poorer Saudis and migrant workers go to work on the drug. A fixer who helps facilitate Captagon drugs deals explains why Saudi is a big market for the dealers.
كانت تطلع من سوريا على الأردن لسعودية، من سوريا لدبي لسعودية، من أفريقيا لسعودية، آخر شيء سعودية.
The retail price of a pill varies wildly, from $25 for the premium tablets sold to the rich Saudis to low-quality, adulterated pills that go for just $1. According to official figures, more than 400 million pills are seized in the Middle East and beyond in 2021. According to reports by news agency AFP, customs and anti-narcotics officers said for every shipment they seize, another 9 make it through. This means even with a low average price of $5 per tablet and only 4 out of 5 shipments getting through, Captagon is still at least a $10 billion industry. Syria is the source of 80% of the world's supply, and the trade is worth at least 3 times its entire national budget. China has announced it's planning to scrap the primary COVID tracking app just days after it started easing its zero COVID policy. Starting Tuesday, the government-run tracking app will be retired. This is the same app that tracked people's movements during using mobile phone signals, identified people in high-risk areas and controlled their travel out of the region. The mobile app has been at the centre of China's zero COVID strategy and has also been a guiding factor in the Beijing pandemic's response. The development comes after China's testing requirements were reduced last week, domestic travel restrictions were lifted and people infected were finally allowed to quarantine at home and not at specialised centres. Meanwhile, China's case tally also reduced over the weekend. Beijing reported 8,800 COVID-19 infections on Sunday, significantly lower than the Saturday tally. Experts, however, say that these daily infection numbers are no longer a reliable measure. Ever since mandatory testing was drastically scaled back, pop-up COVID testing stations are also disappearing from across the country at a fast pace, with videos of long queues emerging from the remaining testing sites. Amid this, China's top disease expert on Sunday warned of a coming surge in COVID-19 infections. Zhong Nanshan said that the Omicron variant is spreading rapidly, adding that one person infected with the virus can spread it to 22 others. Beijing is ramping up its medical infrastructure in line with the expected spike in cases. They're building additional intensive care units and working to fortify hospitals. The coming days will present a challenge to China, where a portion of the population is still unvaccinated, and those who did get the jab got the less effective indigenous ones. Many people in the country are worried for the health of their families, especially the elders.
For those who are afraid of the virus, I think the vocabulary that might describe the situation is that of everyone is more accepting of this sort of opening up. In comparison to just getting sick, our livelihoods are more important. The impact the pandemic had on society was far greater than just that of just health issues. Our livelihoods are more important.
Indian airline Air India, owned by Tata Group, is likely to get a mammoth order of nearly 500 planes, making it one of the largest orders ever in the history of aviation. The planes will be supplied by plane makers Boeing and Airbus, and the deal's worth tens of billions of dollars. Experts say Air India can land this deal at a massive discount in the biggest such deal in the post-corona world. After nearly 2 years of lull, plane makers Boeing and Airbus are desperate for orders and are undercutting each other to gain the maximum plane orders from the Air India deal. Experts add European plane maker Airbus is desperate to get the deal as it can secure some A350 plane production slots initially earmarked for Russia's Aeroflot and now left open because of the war-related sanctions against Moscow. On the other hand, the order could help Air India bolster its position as it carves out a new growth path. Reports say the orders include as many as 400 narrow-body jets and 100 or more wide-bodies. The deal would cap a volatile year for plane giants whose jets are again in demand after the pandemic, but who face mounting industrial and environmental pressures. Such a deal could top $100 billion at list prices, including any options, and rank among the biggest single airlines in volume terms. The deal gives Tata a fleet of 218 aircraft, cementing Air India as the country's largest international carrier and second largest in the domestic market after leader Indigo. The potential blockbuster order comes days after Tata announced the merger of Air India with Vistara, a joint venture with Singapore Airlines, to create a bigger full-service carrier and strengthen presence in domestic and international skies. Buying debt-ridden Air India has also given Tata access to valuable flying rights and landing slots, especially to destinations in the United States and Europe. Portugal captain Cristiano Ronaldo has broken his silence after his team's surprise exit in the quarter-finals of the World Cup against Morocco. The leading goalscorer in international football said that his dream had ended, but remained coy about his future. Ronaldo was in tears as he walked back to the dressing room, and a day after the loss took to social media where he said, and I quote, "Winning a World Cup for Portugal was the biggest and most ambitious dream of my career. Unfortunately, it ended. Much has been written and much has been speculated, but my dedication to Portugal has not changed for a moment. For now, there's not much more to say. Thank you, Portugal. Thank you, Qatar. The dream was beautiful while it lasted. Now we have to let time be a good advisor and allow everybody to draw their own conclusions." The Portuguese superstar now faces a challenging moment in his career. At 37, having played a fifth World Cup, many wonder whether Ronaldo will be back for the 2026 tournament. Although he did express his desire to play in the 2024 European Championships. Ronaldo donned the Portugal jersey for a record equalling 196th international appearance when the Seleção took on Morocco on Saturday. The talismanic forward, who has now been relegated to the role of substitute after a spat with head coach Fernando Santos, came on in the 51st minute but couldn't rescue his team like he'd done multiple times in the past. Ronaldo managed only 10 touches in total and fired just one shot on goal. He sank to his knees with his head in his hands in the 97th minute when a pass just went past him, and with that, probably the last chance to win the World Cup. It's not just his international career that's uncertain at the moment. The five-time winner of the UEFA Champions League is also without a club since his unceremonious departure from Manchester United last month. No top European club have approached to rope in his services. However, he has been linked to a surprise move to Saudi Arabian side Al Nassr, who made him a huge offer last week. The Middle East has been a far from happy hunting ground for him at the tournament, but it might be the next place we see him in action. NASA's Orion capsule has made a swift and safe return from the moon as it splashed down in the Pacific Ocean yesterday. Orion completed a dramatic 25-day test flight, winding up the inaugural mission of the US Space Agency's Artemis lunar program. The capsule barreled through the Earth's atmosphere at a speed of 40,000 kilometers per hour. Soon after the splashdown, US military helicopter and fast boats approached the capsule for inspections. Orion was carrying a simulated crew of 3 mannequins wired with sensors. It was a mission with an eye on returning humans to the moon in the coming years. NASA described the mission as a success.
I don't think any one of us could have imagined the mission this successful, but we had a very successful flight test. We now have a foundational deep space transportation system, and while we haven't looked at all the data that we've acquired, we will do that over the coming days and weeks and fully understand and appreciate the margins that are there.
This mission made a key demonstration of how future lunar astronauts would safely return to Earth, ahead of program's launch lunar flyby set for 2024. This test flight was unmanned, however, the upcoming missions are expected to have people on board. 4 astronauts who are yet to be decided are likely to make the trip in 2024, while 2 people are planned to land at the end of 2025 at the lunar surface. NASA's long-term plan would be to launch a Mars expedition by the late 2030s. NASA's chief, Emily Nelson, said that Orion's performance had enabled them to look for Artemis 2 and push further boundaries.
The spacecraft performed so well that we were able to start looking ahead at Artemis 2 and thinking through how else can we push the boundaries on this flight? What else can we learn? Where are there constraints that we can push on? Where are there opportunities for us to improve on our products for the next flight? And so for the last 25 and a half days, we've been every day looking ahead to the next flight to see how we can improve on where we are today so that we can fly a safe and successful mission with our astronauts next time around.
Orion's safe return is also special as it marks the 50 years of Apollo moon launches. Half a century ago, 12 Apollo astronauts walked on the moon. Orion's the first capsule to visit the lunar surface since then, and it is the first flight under NASA's new Artemis moon program, which is in fact named after Apollo's mythical twin sister.
So this is a great day, not only for America, but it's a great day for all of our international partners. That's a difference from 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we went as a country, as a government. Today, we go with not only international partners, but also commercial partners. And so it is the beginning of the new beginning, and that is to explore the heavens.
Well, that's all from your bulletin today on WION. I'm Oliver Regan, live from London. Thank you very much.
There are many other